evening to have Phil Mandel, and he is checking in all the way from Portland, Oregon. So Andrew, my wonderful husband, is going to interview him. And he is an author, a speaker. He's the principal of Philip Mandel and Associates. He spent 15 years helping business professionals find solutions to their communication and stress challenges. So maybe we could also have him back for that, to talk about how to handle our stress. Phil has co-authored several books, among them Health, Mind, Body, Soul, and Getting Things Done, Keys to a Well-Balanced Life. His approach creates positive, personal, lasting change. His straightforward approach and common sense wisdom put audience members and readers at ease, and his can-do attitude inspires people to strive to greater heights. So on that note, we will explore how he got into planes, what planes he has flown, what it takes to fly, and how we can start. So very exciting. And we thank him so much for being here this evening. And I'm going to stop sharing and allow them to continue and have the floor. So thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I met Phil back in college, and he was an impressive young man back then. I remember he played the Revolutionary Etude by Chopin, and those that know that, it's just an incredibly, the left hand is just crazy. He just stunned all of us with his virtuosity, and then he became an engineer. Eventually worked in the West Coast. I think Fleur was one of the companies you worked at there, and now you also sell real estate. So I mean, you got fingers. He's jack of all trades, does a lot of things really well, and we actually lost track of each other for about 15 years, and then we reconnected. It was fun to catch up with him, and then I found out that he flies, and I was just fascinated with that. He took me up when we first reconnected. I think it's now about 15 years ago. Took me up in a small plane, and it was quite an experience. To just be, two people in a small plane, you are just one with the world, flying like a bird. It's just a fascinating experience, and we thought it'd be fun to interview Phil and find out more about how someone even decides that A, they want to do this, and B, that they can do it, and then C, do it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've always kind of had this fascination for flying. I remember as a kid I used to dream about flying, but I never, the idea of actually being able to fly a plane, to me, it just seemed like that's not something people do, So I'm fascinated by the fact, Phil, that not only you do it a lot, you also teach now. You teach other people how to fly. How was it? I mean,
You're muted, hon.
Was I muted the whole time?
No,
just go back 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how that happened.
Go back to when you started doing this.
Let me see if I can go back. Okay, here we go.
Thank you.
So, just the idea that you decided to go and fly, you did it, is just phenomenal to me. And so I have some friends that I talked to someone recently that said, yeah, I used to date a person that flew, and we did a lot of flying, and I think it's just a wonderful thing. So was there a seminal moment where suddenly you said, I'm just going to fly? Or what was it? Did you have a friend that flew? Or what was it that made you decide, I'm going to go fly? I mean, how did you come with that decision?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, the interesting thing, first of all, that's, how people say, if God had meant for man to fly, he would have given him wings.
Right.
That's not correct. If God had meant for man to fly, he would have given him more money.
Right.
So every once in a while, when I have money, I get to go flying or buy an airplane or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get around to that eventually. But I'm on my 10th airplane now.
Oh, you are? Really? Wow.
Yeah. But what happened in 1981, in fact, when I first started flying, I was dating a young lady named Karen at the time, back in the Boston area, Andrew, where you are. And so Karen's mother lived in Albany, New York, and mom wanted to come and meet the new boyfriend. And I thought, okay, that's great. But having grown up on Long Island, I know that trips like that, either from Great Neck to Boston or all the way from Albany to Boston, it's a long 4-hour exhausting drive.
Mm.
You get there, you're dead tired. If you go and have a meal with someone, you just have to spend the night. It's just too tiring.
Hmm.
So lo and behold, mom and mom's boyfriend show up at a little airport near us where Karen and I were in Boston. And with this real neat looking airplane that he said is called a Mooney. I didn't know it was an airplane called Moonies. I thought they were all Cessnas.
Mm.
What's a Mooney?
Right.
So yeah, so anyway, we had a nice dinner, and before the sun started to go down, we took them back to the airport. They flew off, and they were back home in Albany and in bed by midnight, and not tired at all. And I thought, I just have to do that. That's just like, that's having thought of it all my life, just like you, Andrew, but maybe
Yeah.
it's just a boy thing. I don't know. And, by then, having lived in the Boston area for so long, at school and other working, I used to go down the Cape plenty of times for our mutual friend, Ted.
Hmm.
His family had a cabin down there, or I'd go down for other reasons. And it was always, it would have to be on a weekend, because getting down there and back during the week was just impossible if you had to work the next day.
Mm.
So Friday afternoon, Friday evening traffic down, is it Route 3? It's been a while. From Boston
No.
down to the Cape.
Mm.
Do I have the right number?
I think 3 is right.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, down the Cape and then all the way out to Hyannisport or Provincetown or something like that. It just takes forever.
Oh God, yeah.
And so I thought, okay, if he can fly from Albany to Boston and then back to Albany and not be tired, I'll bet I could probably learn to fly and then fly down the Cape or Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket and not have to deal with driving, not have to deal with getting on a boat, just go there. And that's what happened. I like the day after that flight with my girlfriend's mom's boyfriend, that whole thing with the Mooney.
Yeah.
I went to the closest private field I could find in the Yellow Pages at the time, which was up there in Bedford, Massachusetts, Tewksbury, beg your pardon, Tewksbury, Mass, just north of Boston, a little airport called Tumac Airport. And I said, how do I get started?
Really? You just walked in and said, how do I do it?
How I get started. And the day after that, I took my first introductory lesson, and then they said, plunk down $3,500 and we'll crank you dry. Let's go.
I love it.
And 2.5, less than 3 months later, I had my private pilot license.
Oh, really? How much work is that? Is it like every weekend? That sounds like a great rush.
Andrew, we've known each other a long time. When either of us wants to do something, we just turn on the spigot.
I love it.
And nothing stops either of us. It's
Yeah.
somehow
Good
that's
for
built in. You're in my DNA both.
Hmm.
So every chance I get, I go for a lesson, sometimes twice a day. I can remember one day I even had 3 lessons in one day.
Wow.
Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can concentrate through, for that amount of time. And, it can be pretty intense, but when I want it, I go for it. And that's what I did. It's like, I'm starting. I'm going to finish as fast as reasonably possible to be safe and proficient.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go. And then I got my license, and then I got tired of having to rent, where you can pick the airplane up at a certain time, but then you have to have it back 2 hours later. And if you want to take it overnight, that's a big deal. It's like, I can't handle that many restrictions. So I bought my first airplane 2 weeks after I got my license.
Oh my God. That's great. What was that one?
So that was a Cessna 172, and I can show you something that looks like it. I don't have.
And by the way, is that just a model number, or did that refer to wingspan or anything like that?
Okay, great question. Let me get the right website here, and let's see. Does this say Twin Oaks Air Park?
It does.
Okay, so this is where I currently teach out here in Oregon. And if I click on this little aircraft link, then this shows the different airplanes we have.
There we go, Cessna 172.
Yeah, so there are a whole bunch of Cessnas. Cessna is just one of many, many types of manufacturers of light aircraft. You've heard of Pipers, and there's Beechcraft and Mooney, and just bunches of others. So a 172, like I would have had, might have looked like this. I don't know how to expand that any further, but that's
fine. Yeah.
So it's a very neat little 4-place airplane. the numbers 150 and 152 are just marketing numbers. They really don't.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not.
And I saw.
Hour
Sorry to interrupt you. I saw it said 155 or something per hour. That's the
Okay, sorry. Let's go back there. So current rental rates. Does it say that? Let me go back.
When you drilled into one of them, I think it said 155 an hour there. Yeah.
So this one's $155 an hour. That's just for the airplane. The instructor would be in addition.
Sure.
And a Cessna 150, which is only a 2-seater, is more like $110 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
not too bad. Not too bad.
Back then, I think I was paying $55 an hour for a little Grumman trainer, a little Grumman 2-seater plane.
Mm-hmm.
And now that would be $120 or $130 these days.
So 10 planes, you keep upgrading to the next plane, the next plane, the next plane. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I tend to be impulsive. So sometimes I shoot first and ask questions later. So I got that airplane. I really loved it. It was my first airplane, and I learned a lot. I learned about maintenance, and I actually got my instrument rating on that airplane, and my commercial pilot certificate, and my flight instructor certificate. And so probably a year after I bought it, I don't even remember why. It was just like time to sell it. So I had enough of that one, so I sold it. And then a few months later, I missed having an airplane, so I bought a Piper Cherokee. And the Piper Cherokee I owned when I moved from Boston to the West Coast. Initially, I moved to the Bay Area, followed our mutual friends Lynn Sherman and Phil Shapiro out to the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a car and an airplane, and I thought, well, I could drive the car and have someone else fly the airplane for me. And I thought that's a dumb idea. So I put the car on you can put the car and get it to a service, and they'll ship it out by rail.
Right.
And I flew the airplane. Like, why would I let anyone else fly my airplane?
Sure.
So I flew it out to the West Coast, and the car showed up eventually. And so that was airplane number 2. And when I got bored with that, I sold that. And then you may have seen either air shows live or videos where there's an aerobatic biplane, and it's doing all these loops and rolls and doing all that aerobatic stuff. My third airplane was called a Kristen Eagle, which
it was built to do that kind of stuff.
Similar to a Pitts, if you've heard of that, but you often see them at air shows. And so the problem is, I bought the airplane because it was just gorgeous, and then I discovered that I'm not an aerobatic pilot.
Is that because you got ill trying to do a loop-to-loop or something, or what?
My brain never worked that. Yeah, I just never could handle all upside down stuff. So,
oh, yeah.
So I had that for a little while, then I sold that, and then I've had 6 more airplanes since then.
I love that. Well, by the way, for people that don't know you, you have a beautiful Steinway piano at your home. I remember at one point you saw an ad for a Bosendorfer or some beautiful piano in Boston. You said, Andrew, try it out. Let me know if it's any good. I tried it out. I loved it.
Yeah.
They sent it to you. It was like $85,000 or something, and you got it and said, I don't like it. It's just, I felt so bad that I had you go through all that effort. And I don't like this piano at all. So anyway.
I think I even sent you to Martha's Vineyard to go look at it.
Whatever. It was fun though. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was a great trip for me.
I appreciate that. It was fun to own for a while, and I had some parties so I could show it off, and then I thought, I just like my Steinway better. So.
Yeah, your Steinway's beautiful. So let's look at some of the planes or the videos you have, and maybe you could talk through, some of the procedures. One of the things you did with me, I remember, is you did the stall. We'll have to talk about that at some point
Oh wow, did we do that? Wow.
Yeah, you did that to me.
That was cruel.
For those that don't know, that's when you tilt the plane at such a point that it literally just starts to drop in the sky.
So it's kind of like this. So hang on, let me make sure I shared the sound.
Yeah, we're seeing it. We're seeing something.
Yeah, let me know if you got the sound.
Here we are.
Okay. All right, so this is actually, I was practicing stalls in my airplane. So watch, it's going to kind of drop a little bit to the left. Right about now. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this thing at the top here, this guy who's with me is a photographer and videographer. He took the airspeed indicator, which is a tiny little gauge down here, blew it up so you can see it. And now we're going to do a stall while we're banked to the right. You see the airspeed going down, 70, 60, boom. Stall
wow.
Right 60.
Yeah.
We'll do it one more time just to be sure we got the right airspeed. So we're banked to the right. There we are at 75. Pull on the stick. There we go, 70, 60, 60 right there.
So the key is when you start to drop like that, you need to readjust things so that the wing is at a certain angle to the earth.
Yeah. So so it's a good question. So so let's see. So the airplanes fly because of airflow over the wing. And without getting into all the physics and Bernoulli and everybody else, you got this curved upper surface. The air goes over the top. The air on the bottom is relatively straight.
Mm-hmm.
So because this air has to go a little farther, there's lower pressure. So the wing actually kind of gets sucked up into the air. And in addition, with air going over the top, and then the wing throws it down and back. So Newton's law, equal and opposite reaction. If you throw air down, that's going to help lift the airplane.
Yeah.
Two main forces is Bernoulli and without going into all the physics.
Yeah.
Without sufficient airflow, you don't get enough Bernoulli and you don't get enough downwash. So when the airplane it's actually related to angle of attack and how the air meets the wing. But in a simple demonstration like that, when you're too slow to generate enough lift, then the airplane's just going to follow its center of gravity. What's the heaviest thing on the airplane? The engine. Big engine, big propeller, 500-600 pounds worth of stuff, and then the center of gravity is a little bit forward. And so once the wings lose lift, the airplane's just going to pitch down. And by doing that, it picks up airspeed and brings itself back into a condition where it generates lift.
Oh, that's interesting. It self-corrects. If it
goes down, now you have gravity, now you have more airspeed, and now you're flying again.
Good to know. Yeah.
So
Excellent.
it fixes itself, and the pilot can still screw it up if they're not paying attention.
Yeah, you should have told me that before you did that maneuver. I
should have done that.
Changing my pants when I got home.
So in an airplane, that's called a stall. Is when the wing stalls. It's not like we're so used to cars. If the car stalls, it means the engine quit.
Yeah, that's not
airplane has nothing to do with that. We never say the engine stalls. The airflow over the wings is not enough, so the wings lose lift, and that's called it's an aerodynamic stall. And then the nose goes down, and then it picks up airspeed, and then it's flying again.
So it would be great, Phil, if you gave us some simple facts to help us deal with, what you had to learn. I mean, to me, it sounds like it's so complicated. I was even telling you earlier when we talked about this that you go to the airport and the runways have these strange number designations, and and yet it all makes sense to you, right? There's a whole way it's codified. Maybe you can explain a little of that so people get an inkling of why runways have strange number designations, and
I will.
Not just random.
No, let me.
By the way, in Massachusetts, they've decided to take all the exits and change them to the miles down the road instead. So suddenly exits that used to be 1, 2, 3, 4 are like 17, 54, 86. It's the most annoying thing ever. So,
yeah.
It's kind of like that with runways.
You're right. So let me see if I have a touch and go. Let's see. I'm landing at a nearby airport. Let me see if I can show this to you real quick. So the runway numbers, here we go. Let me jump over to this video. Landing at a nearby airport called Milano. I got sound, and I got this right here. Let me maximize the screen. And
nice.
Oh, am I going towards the runway?
Yep.
Okay, so from memory, I think this is runway 32. So runway numbers are simply the alignment with respect to magnetic north. So runway 36 is the same as 0 because it's 360 degrees.
360. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as runway 0. We just call it runway 36.
Yeah.
That's aligned with magnetic north. And if you go a little bit to the left, it's 350, and a little further. So if you go all the way west, it's 270. South would be 180, and then they just lop off the 0. So it would be runway 36, runway 35.
Yeah.
Runway 27 would be heading 270, which is west. This one I think is runway 32, if I remember this airport correctly. Yep. It's kind of faded paint, but did you see the 32?
I did see that, yeah.
And so the other end of the runway is going to be 180 degrees from that. So I'm just going to do a touch and go, landing and takeoff. and we might be able to read the numbers upside down the other way. So Andrew, if it's runway 32 one way, what's the reciprocal? What's 32 minus 18?
Oh God, you're gonna make me do math now?
I am. It's 1-4. So
1-4, 140, right?
that 1-4 right there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So whatever runway you're on, the opposite is going to be the reciprocal, 180-degree reciprocal.
Yeah, I was actually thinking 320 is 40 from 360, so 40 from 180 is 140. That's how I was thinking of it. Yeah.
That works too. Good work.
That does work.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, you also said that there could be two runways, so someone would be an east and then a west, and then sometimes a middle runway. Is that central or middle? What do they call that?
Okay, so it's not an east and a west. It would be right or left.
Oh, right or left. Okay.
And, so I forget how Logan's laid out, but for example, at Portland International Airport, there's two runways parallel to the Columbia River. I can actually show you that on our fancy aviation app called ForeFlight.
Now, by definition, do you always land on the right side, or you could land on the left side too? It's just depending what the tower tells you.
Stand by on that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me dig into this gizmo right here and go back to Zoom and share screen. So
then I'll stop asking questions. You could just show us what you want. Now, this looks really complicated to me.
So, well, just like any map, you got to learn how to read it.
Yeah, maybe you could tell us a little bit about this in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is PDX. This is our international airport, Portland International Airport.
Yeah.
What we're looking at is a sectional chart. Basically, it's the visual chart published by the government.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be on an app that I subscribe to, which is called ForeFlight. But this is also available. Plenty of ways to look at this online.
Yeah.
For free. But you can see these two parallel runways. This blue rectangle, and then next to it is one then parallel to it. So heading to the west, which is from, as you look at the screen, from your right to left, that would be basically towards the west. And so those are runway 28 right and 28 left.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just imagine you're landing with the river at your right and you're going towards the left of your screen,
mm-hmm.
The one on the right is runway 28 right. The one on the left is runway 28 left. And you might be able to zoom into an aerial map. Oh, look at that. That's pretty.
Nice. But coming from the other direction.
So there's 28 right. See that?
Yes. Excellent.
If I scroll over to the other runway, wherever they put it, let's see where to go. There's somewhere. Here it is. 28 left. See that?
Ah, okay. Yes.
Yeah. And so if there were three, another one in the middle, that would probably be called 28 center. So there'd be 28 left, center, and right.
Yeah. And now, if it's coming from the other direction, what's the quick math on this? What do you do?
So it's just 180 degrees different. So
8 minus 18.
Yeah, correct. So what would that be? What's 28 minus 18?
You're talking 10, right?
Correct. Right.
Okay. Oh, there you go. 10 left now. So 28 right is 10 left.
Correct.
Yeah, very cool.
So,
okay.
Yep. So if you're on the left going moving to the right, this runway's on your left.
Mm-hmm.
If you're over here going the other way, this runway's on your right.
Well, this is great. Now I can make sure the pilot's in the right lane when I'm flying.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Did you just land 28 left or 28 right? Come on.
Yeah, right. So can you go back to that map for a minute? I noticed an interesting comment. It said that because of a magnetic disturbance on the southeast area, you can get as much as 8 degrees off on the on your bearing. So that's interesting.
Okay.
That's probably not a usual kind of marking. See right there there you go.
This thing right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That is fun. Yeah. So
what they're just saying is that in that specific area, don't be married to your compass.
Yes. Well, obviously, you're not going to tell us everything about. It would take you probably hours to tell us everything about this map. But there's some key things you could point out that would help us start to understand the way a pilot thinks when they look at a map like this.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So most flying is done visually,
mm-hmm.
and the acronym is VFR, which means Visual Flight Rules.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not visual, in other words, if the clouds are too low, or if the visibility is too bad, then you're flying by instruments, and that's called IFR, which is Instrument Flight Rules.
Mm-hmm.
So airliners are always on instrument flight rules because they're always under positive control. And they go up into high altitude airspace where it's just required. You have to be under positive control. The rest of us, little single engine and twin engine people, the vast majority of our flying is visual.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't filed an instrument flight plan in years, except when I'm training an instrument student and we file flight plans because obviously they need to practice. So when I look at this chart, so first of all, the airport I fly at, let me turn on my little indicators here. So remember the website I showed you with the airplanes, with the 172 and the 150,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's this airport right here. I'm going to kind of point to it with this little box, right where this points, where it says Stark's Twin Oaks Air Park. Let me zoom in a little bit for you.
Now, for some reason, I'm seeing that small on my screen. Are you sharing it? Maybe that's the
I'm
setting
not
here
sharing
I
the
have to
right,
fix.
let me make sure I'm sharing the right one. Hold on.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what I did before. Okay, so Stark's Twin Oaks Air Park, rather,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the runway symbol. So when we see, there's two different colors for airports.
Hmm.
One down here that I'm pointing to now
Is that like a Republican airport and a Democratic airport?
is magenta,
Okay.
and then this one a little bit to the north, where I'm pointing now, is Hillsborough Airport. It's blue. Magenta airports are uncontrolled. Blue airports have a control tower.
Ah.
So you know right away which airports are controlled, which airports are uncontrolled.
Yeah.
And of course it's controlled, and there's specific procedures you have to follow. You have to contact the tower before you enter this blue circle that surrounds it, depending on your altitude, and you need clearance to use the runway and things like that.
Mm.
So if it's a magenta airport, there are different procedures. You're still going to talk to the radio. You're going to use the radio if you have one, but first of all, you don't have to have one.
Really? That sounds dangerous.
In vast majority of airspace, most people do, but there's a lot of airports, a lot of places where it's not like farm fields and anywhere else. It's just not required.
Yeah.
So, but if you have one, you're nuts not to use it. And this tells you the frequency, 123.05 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
And the little C next to it means that's the common traffic advisory frequency, meaning if you're going to land here, you dial this frequency and you announce your intentions.
Ah, okay.
Nobody talks back to you. You're basically broadcasting in the blind.
Yeah.
And saying, I'm approaching from the west and I'm going to be downwind for runway 2. And someone else might say, I'm here, on the airport and I'm taking off runway 2. And now each of you know that you should be looking for the other one.
Yeah.
But there's no tower saying cleared for takeoff or cleared to land. They're just talking to each other.
Interesting. Huh.
So, and where does that sound? Just think about the vast majority of your driving or all of your driving. Nobody tells you what to do.
Right.
Other than a red light tells you to stop and, other than that, you're driving around, you're looking for other traffic and you're avoiding them, which is precisely what we do. We just do it in 3 dimensions.
Exactly. That's cool.
Pretty fun, huh?
Very fun. Thank you.
All right. What else you got?
Yeah. So
if audience members have questions and you have a way of fielding them, then I'd love to hear them.
yeah, in fact, I'm going to do 2 things for the audience. I'm going to share with you Phil's site, which is called flyphil.info. I'm going to copy that in and put it into the chat for people to review later. Phil, did you want to show us some more of your videos? You have a whole sequence of them.
I could show a few thousand videos, yes.
Could you show us the video with the propeller that looks bent? Because I want to show people this phenomenon. This is interesting because, it looks like you have this fancy curved propeller, like a scimitar propeller, but that's not the case. It's actually a phenomenon of the way the video is captured, right? So it's a straight up and down propeller.
Okay.
Blades that go straight out, they're radial. And yet, when you actually see the video of it, it looks like these things are curved.
Well,
there's a little bit of it there, but you have one where that's right. There's one left there.
well, let me
The one on the left, it's right in the middle.
Well, but the problem is if it's the wing camera, then you're not looking through the
No,
propeller.
but see the training video one on your left? Isn't that right in the middle of the cockpit?
Oh, all right. Let's see what that one is. Hold on. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. You get this phenomena where, first of all, it's moving all over the place. It looks like it's actually leaving the plane. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but as you said, that's aliasing in our language.
Right.
It's just it's going faster than the video can keep up, so it looks choppy.
Now, you
But at
showed
this
me
point,
yeah.
I can actually read, so I can see my tachometer right here. It's actually going about 2,400 RPM. So much faster than you can see. When you're behind it, it's just a blur. You're just looking right through it. You don't even notice it.
Right.
Yeah. So Let's see. I think I'm going to do some fun banks here. Let's find out what I do in this video. I have no idea.
In fact, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that they used to have, you know, for the World War I planes that have the guns going right through the propeller.
Yes.
And,
yes, they timed them so that the bullets go out.
Well, then they realized they had to time it.
They had to time it. Yeah.
So they.
Yeah. So this is me. This is my airplane. I'm just doing some steep turns. Just
Nice.
practicing.
That looks pretty steep. It's like 45 degrees at least, right? Maybe more. Where can you see the?
Probably 45.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, possible. Oh,
And now, is the plane called a Thorpe? Is that what that means? Thorpe?
yeah. If you can see this right here. So,
Right. This
John
is recent,
Thorpe.
August. Yeah.
Beg your pardon?
It's very recent. It says August 2021.
Yeah, I just made this video a couple months ago.
Nice.
Last month. So John Thorpe was a designer, and it was his 18th design, so not terribly original.
Oh, really? That's why he calls it. Yeah.
Called it Thorpe T18.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. It's actually my third one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kicking myself for selling the first one because that was a gem. And then, so actually, I'll show you the pictures. Hang on. How do I new share? So this, I have pictures of my first one, but they're in print, and I don't think I've ever bothered to scan them.
Mm.
So this was my second one. And so, by the way, these numbers, every aircraft is identified with its registration number. So we usually call it a tail number, but that's just vernacular. It's the FAA registration number, kind of like the license plate on a car, but airplanes don't respect states. Right? Airplanes go everywhere, so they're federally registered.
Mm-hmm.
The states, that's just the way it is. It's the FAA that certifies and registers aircraft and tracks the title and so on.
So that stays with the aircraft forever, even when it changes ownership?
Say that last part again.
Does that designation stay with that plane forever, even when it changes ownership?
It stays with it unless someone decides to change it.
Oh, so you can change it.
And then they have to coordinate with FAA to make sure they're getting a new unique number, and then they have to repaint it.
Yep. Well, you can change the F to a B, so it'd be a JB.
But that's unusual. In general, when an aircraft is born, it's a tail number. It stays with it until it dies.
Yeah.
It never changes. So
that's different than license plates. We have a neighbor that keeps switching his license plates on different cars, so that doesn't happen on a plane.
No, it just stays there.
Very interesting.
Let's see what the drug runners do. They'll steal an airplane and then repaint it with a different tail number.
Ah.
To throw off law enforcement. So,
yeah. Wow.
I recommend against that. So this is the interior of that plane.
Mm-hmm.
These Thorpes they're not big. I never knew John Thorpe, but I suspect he wasn't a big guy because these are fairly small cockpits.
Yeah.
And, so that's the inside. So that was that airplane.
Oh wow! So the wings on the bottom of the plane here,
correct. And they look like they're broken. They're kind of funny. They're flat, and then they go out at an angle, which is unusual.
I would think that would make them somehow more stable. It looks like
most that's called dihedral when the wings go up like that.
Yeah,
and that is done for stability.
Mm-hmm.
In most airplanes, the dihedral starts right at the wing root.
Mm-hmm.
What's unusual about this is that it's flat first and then starts the dihedral.
Right.
So that's just the way John did it. I don't know that there's any deep meaning to it, but that was. And then let me see. So I'm going to take a slight excursion and show you a different airplane. This is called a Grumman Cheetah, and it's a four-place version of the airplanes that I grew up with back in Tumac in Tewksbury, Massachusetts.
I'm sorry, four place meaning four people in it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
2 place means 2 seats. 4 place means 4 seats.
Okay.
So this is a 4-seat Grumman as opposed to the 2-seat Grummans that I got my license in back in Boston. So this was my previous airplane that I actually had 2 co-owners in this thing. And speaking of dihedral, note that the dihedral starts right at the wing root.
Right.
As opposed to the T18 where it's level and then dihedral.
Right.
Some of that is just a matter of style, and John just wanted to do it that way. Some of that was for ease of construction. But that was that airplane. I love those airplanes. And let's see. So the airplane I have now, if I can figure out where it went, it's one of these pictures. Maybe. Nope, it went away. I'll find it here while we're talking.
Okay. Yeah, and also I think you had a video you showed earlier where you have the before we show started today, where you have that plane taking off. I'd like to see that. You had a friend taking a picture of it taking off.
Okay, yeah, I'll track that down in just a second. But let me just show you. So what do you call it? GoPro cameras are ubiquitous these days.
Oh yeah.
And this is, I have one mounted on my left wingtip.
Can you just mount it yourself, or do you have to get someone,
Yeah.
an FAA person, to do it for you?
Nope, mount it myself.
No.
I bought a aluminum device that's made for this. So I just borrowed some holes that hold on the wingtip and took out the screws, put the mount down, put the screws back in. So I have one camera out there in space, so it doesn't have to look through the propeller or anything.
Right.
And then another one that sits right behind my head, so that's where you see the panel and through the windscreen, like I showed earlier.
So, by the way, what mountain is that we're looking at?
That is our Mount Hood, our beautiful
Okay.
Mount Hood, off to our east of Portland. That's kind of one of the icons of Portland.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's our beautiful Mount Hood. So the video you were talking about, let's see, what was the one, Andrew?
You had one with that particular your current plane taking off at night, I think it was, right?
Taking off, and I wonder what I did with that. Landing, touch and go. Oh, who knows where that went?
That's okay. Just show us some more videos.
I will. So here's, come on, let's go expand that, and let me, oh, where'd my zoom go? I got to share screen first, then I can maximize.
Right.
So here's screen. And so this, you can see this and hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this, I took up a passenger. This is very interesting. There's a fella at the same airport where I fly now who's completely deaf. I mean, Andrew knows I'm half deaf. I had a stroke a few years ago and I lost my left ear. This guy was either born deaf or deaf since a very, very early age.
How can you fly if you're deaf?
100% deaf, because you can.
Really?
And he's even a commercially, so he could charge to take people flying. Like
Wow.
sightseeing.
Wow.
He couldn't possibly get an instrument rating because that takes a lot of communication. But he's able to do, he can't go to controlled airports, so he can only go to the magenta uncontrolled airports.
Yeah.
And,
But how does he signal to people that he's intending on landing? Is it all done?
It's all, as I said, you don't have to use the radio.
Oh, so it's visual. So he's just got to make sure no planes are coming at him.
Right. So it's all purely visual.
Wow.
Just like when you're driving.
Wow.
I always come back to driving because
Yeah.
okay, so here's so this is a different airplane. This is my student. To see that big 17? Did you notice that? So this is runway 17.
Yep.
So what does that mean? What's the magnetic heading?
That's 170, so that's almost south, right? It's kind of
That's correct.
little bit southeast. Just a little bit.
Correct. So
Southeast.
then, and over here on the left, you see the control tower.
Mm-hmm.
So this happens to be a controlled airport. This is Aurora State Airport near me.
Yeah.
And this is a Cessna 150. I just remember flying, the colors and everything. I know this airplane. And this is my student taking off on runway 17. And I just thought I'd show this for a few seconds.
Now, are you sitting in the right side? Is this your view of it? Is that what's going on?
Correct. Yeah. So in an airplane, typically the pilot sits on the left. So the person I'm training is on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And
How's he doing, by the way?
Well, he's licensed.
Okay.
Very, very good pilot.
Mm.
And we are now working on his instrument rating.
Excellent.
And in fact, he became part of a club that just recently bought a Cessna 182, which is like that 172 four-seater, only a little kind of grandpa. A little bit bigger, more power, more capable.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to training him on his instrument rating in the airplane that he's a partner, that he co-owns.
So how many, is there a set number for this, or maybe there's a rough idea? How many hours of training do you need to get to be a pilot?
It's a great question. So for private pilot, the FAA required minimum is 40. including about 20 hours of instruction and 20 hours of supervised solo.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely does anybody do it at 40 hours. That's usually the people who grew up with mom or dad as a pilot, and they kind of grew up in an airplane, and
Yeah.
they're just going through the motions because they sort of already know what to do.
Yeah.
But most folks take about 60 to 65. Some people take a little more, some a little bit less, but that's sort of the national average.
Hmm.
And you're about to ask about cost. I know that because I can see it in your eyes. And so if you multiply by, $110 an hour for the small airplane, or $155 an hour, and then add $50 or $55 for the instructor, and a bunch of other expenses, your medical certificate, blah, 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 blah. It's going to run about 10 grand in today's dollars.
Yeah.
For a private pilot.
Mm-hmm. And then in order to stay certified, you need to do what? Every couple of years? How does that work?
Great. Very good. So you're right. Every 2 years, you have to have what's called a flight review, which means you go up with an instructor and they run you through the ringer for at least an hour of flight time and an hour of ground time, going through the regulations and so on.
Yeah.
And if you're a bit too rusty to make the instructor happy in 1 hour, then you go for another hour. You go as long as you need to before the instructor, make sure the instructor is confident in your abilities. What I tell people is I like to sleep at night. So I don't sign anybody off unless I can just go home, put my head on the pillow, knowing you're taking up your friends and family, and everybody's going to be safe. So it's going to take what it takes. But
Right.
people who are flying regularly, usually hour, maybe an hour and a half is all it takes, just to, it might be a little rough around the edges, but we'll get them fixed up. And that's every 2 years. And so that's just to be able to act as pilot in command of an aircraft. In order to take passengers, there's a little bit tighter window. It's a little tighter, which has to do with takeoffs and landings. So there's a 90-day window. So let's say the weather goes to heck and something like that, and it just can't fly for 3 months. I would have to go out by myself, do 3 takeoffs and landings all by myself in an airplane. Then I could take a student again or a passenger. So you need at least 3 takeoffs and landings in the last 90 days to carry passengers.
Can you do it all in one day? Like just go up and down?
Yeah. Okay, I do 3 touch and goes, and I come back and pick you up, and we go flying. So, which brings to mind, and every instructor will tell you this, there's a difference between currency and proficiency. Currency satisfies the letter of the law. I have 3 takeoffs and landings, but they were 85 days ago. If your passengers knew that, right, would they want to jump in the airplane with you, or would they say, you know what, go out and do a half a dozen and then we'll talk? So just 2 different things. And, pilots are expected to be responsible, and most of them are. Yeah. It's like, I'm legally current, but gosh, it's just been a while. Let me go out and practice before I take anybody else up. And that's what I do. If I go 2 weeks without flying my plane, because it's a little hot rod, it really takes it takes all your attention.
Well, I know you and I are both piano players.
If I haven't flown for 2 weeks, I will not let anybody in the right seat with me.
As a fellow piano player,
practice by myself. Pardon me?
As a fellow piano player, you and I know that if you don't play for a week, you don't want to go in public. So,
I know.
Like, I forget the expression. Something like if you miss a day, you missed 2 days. Your teacher knows. You missed a week. Everyone knows it, or something like that. So same thing with flying. Yeah. So let's talk for a minute about. Okay, so now you're certified, or whatever the expression is. What do you call it? Certified? Or
I technically certificated.
Okay, because we know you're certified. We do know that.
We got that.
So certificated, and you just want to go and fly. I'm assuming if you go to a maroon airport, you can just go do it, right?
Correct.
But if it's a control tower airport, you have to issue a flight plan. Is that true, or some kind of a?
Nope. Very good question. So, well,
that's only for commercial that you have to do a flight plan.
Okay. So I'm trying to parse the question down to what makes the most sense. So, So let me give you an example. So my airplane's parked here at Twin Oaks, And I'm just going to build a little tiny flight plan here while we're speaking. So I'm going to add that to the route.
Now, we're not seeing your screen. Are you trying to show us as you go?
Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. Okay. Can't you just read my mind?
I've learned not to try to do that with you.
Okay. So here's Twin Oaks. Yes.
Yep.
So here's where I'm based. And I showed you that little video at Runway 17 at Aurora.
Yeah.
And so guess what? Yesterday, I flew my airplane from Twin Oaks to Aurora.
Mm-hmm.
Gave a lesson to someone down there in a simulator inside of a building, and then I flew back. So here's what happens. It's a Magenta airport, so all I did was talk to the other traffic and say, Twin Oaks traffic, experimental 118 Bravo Charlie is taking off runway 2. That's all I got to do, and I listen for the other ones. I watch for them, and so on. So I take off and I fly more or less along this route. But before I'm within, well before I get to Aurora Airport, I call Aurora Tower.
Yeah.
Because it's a control airport, so I can't just jump in. So I say Aurora Tower, experimental 118 Bravo Charlie is 8 miles northwest, landing, and I have your weather information. Power comes back and says 118 Bravo Charlie, enter right downwind for runway 35. It gives me specific instructions.
Yeah.
I have the traffic pattern. So I come down here. I actually end up kind of going like this. Anyway, it's hard to draw, but I come down around and I land to the north, which is runway 35.
Yeah.
And then I give the lesson. Then when I go take off, controller says cleared for takeoff runway 35. And then I backtrack over here and I get near Twin Oaks Air Park and I say Twin Oaks traffic, experimental 118 Bravo Charlie, entering the traffic pattern for runway 2.
By the way, you keep using the word experimental. Are you currently using an experimental plane?
Yeah. So
tell us what that means, because it sounds experimental, but it's more.
It sounds experimental. So any airplane that was not built by a factory, so Cessna, Piper, anything that's got a type certificate, FAA has blessed every nut and bolt and screw and everything else. Is probably going to end up what's called experimental. So anything that was built from plans or a kit, or you say, I can build an airplane. How hard can it be? And you put this thing together. So it's called experimental because it wasn't built in a factory. And there are hundreds of thousands.
Wow. How do you make sure that the person that built it knows what they were doing?
Yeah. So we'll need another hour for that.
Okay.
But I know the Thorpe T-18s. I know people in the community. I actually bought this from the guy who's kind of Mr. Thorpe in today's United States. He's the source of all the wisdom and knowledge and information for Thorpes. And he had bought this plane from another guy and did some rebuilding on it. And he wanted to fly it for a while and then sell it like in December or something. And this was back 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little over 2 years. And I said, dude, I want it now. I don't want to wait till October. Like, it's flying weather now.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. By the way, you mentioned a deaf guy that could fly, but please tell me there's no blind guy that can fly.
So I didn't finish that story. The deaf guy comes and flies with me, and we communicated in the cockpit literally on a cell phone. Like, I'd type a text and he'd read it.
Oh my God.
Or not, and then he'd type back and we just talk back and forth on this.
Yeah.
Before we took off, I said, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to climb to 14,000 feet. Okay. So we climbed it to 14,000 feet. I started the video. We just did that beautiful video over the Portland area. And we could see Mount Hood, Mount Baker, Mount Adams, Mount Jefferson, Mount St. Helens. We had a beautiful view of the Portland area. And then came back and landed. Andrew, should we see if anybody else has questions? We only got a few.
I think so. Before we do that, I just want to say I know a guy that's working on a scientific solution for blind people that's amazing, where the brain is so elastic. They call it plasticity of the brain. I forget the word, but it's so elastic in the way it can learn that it can actually train the skin of the human body could become a big giant retina, if you will. So he's actually building. Well, essentially, the whole back of a blind person will be a big retina. So basically, it's going to have thousands of pixels of pressure on the skin, and a blind person will be able to see, not like you or I, but probably be able to see a runway. So anyway,
that's incredible.
So let's open up the floor. If anyone wants to enter a message on the chat room, please do. I know I see a couple of my friends out there, so I know that you are not shy. If you have some questions, now's the time to do it. And if you are shy and want to just unmute yourself and blurt it right out and just ask us, that's fine too. So we don't have so many people that we're going to shout each other out. But
Yeah.
and if not,
Hello.
hey Peter.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Hi, Philip. How are you?
Oh, good. Hey there.
Peter, you look like you're flying right now with the headphones and everything.
Only in my mind.
There you go.
So it's also been an interest of mine since an early age. And the one flying lesson I took was in a rotary wing craft. I wondered, have you flown those, and how would you compare that to flying fixed?
Yeah, really interesting question. So when Peter says rotary wing, he means helicopter.
Ah, okay.
And an airplane is a fixed wing. So right, the wings are just fixed, and this propeller drags you forward, and that gives you the airflow over the wings. In a helicopter, the rotor is the wing, and it's 2 blades or 3 blades chasing each other around, and that's the wing itself is rotating.
Yeah.
As opposed to a fixed wing, which is pulled through by the propeller.
Well, by the way, my wife Hillary wants to learn how to fly a helicopter, and I'm stunned by that because when I first met her, I took her up for Mother's Day to because she has 2 young girls. I took her up to the top of the hub, which is a big, tall building, and she literally turned white. and you know, people go to the top of the hub to see the view. We actually went up there, and I had to say, we want to be as far away from the windows as possible. And they looked at me like I was an idiot, but we sat by the kitchen, and she was happy. So. But now when we were in Hawaii, we took a helicopter ride, and she absolutely loved it. And I don't understand.
I'll tell you the difference, because I used to say that as well. I'm perfectly comfortable in airplanes.
Okay. I'm
terrified of heights.
Interesting.
Terrified.
How can that be?
Because someone said, and I don't know where this wisdom came from the universe through them to me. They said there's a difference between height and altitude.
Okay.
I can't explain it.
Wow.
But if you put me on a window that's 200 feet high, the pane all the way up, I can't get close to it. But I can get in an airplane and go to 20,000 feet, and I couldn't care less.
That's amazing.
I don't know. Anyway,
I can share with you, I did rock climbing in college, and the best rock climber would not stand up when he got to the top.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
But he was the guy who taught everybody else.
Anyway, to answer your question, Peter, when I lived back where you guys are in the Boston area, there was a guy with a helicopter, and I tried to trade with him, like hour for hour. He trained me and I trained him. So I ended up getting 2 helicopter lessons. They're fascinating. They're vastly different from airplanes. We airplane slobs like to say that helicopters don't actually fly. They just beat the air into submission. But of course, I'm being facetious. They're incredible machines, much different from airplanes. And usually any given pilot is usually one or the other. It's weird. There are a lot of dual rated pilots, but for most parts, someone's either an airplane head or a helicopter head. And there's not that much crossover. But again, there's a lot of dual rated pilots. So
now, what's the most fun? Go ahead.
I actually have no desire to do. I'm happy to sit in a helicopter and let someone else fly. I'd love it. But to become a helicopter pilot, it's just.
Peter, did you have another question? So we're almost done. Which cat is this? Is this Echo or?
This is Echo.
Echo. Okay. He's blurry now.
He likes to join the conversation. Yeah.
Excellent.
He's never been flying with me.
What's the most fun thing you ever did flying? Did you ever fly someplace just to have a hamburger or anything crazy like that? Or
you talk to any pilot, they'll tell you about what's called a $100 hamburger. Except nowadays it's more like $200. But and then someone posted on one of the pilot Facebook groups. They flew from somewhere near me up to the Seattle area for a piece of pie. And he said, that wasn't just a $100 hamburger. That was a $500 piece of pie.
You got to love that pie to do that.
So to answer your question, remember I learned in Boston and I bought the 172 so I could fly from Tewksbury to Cape Cod. And we just weren't connected in this way back then, but I took some coworkers and other people I mean, in 45 minutes in a relatively slow airplane, like a 172 Cessna, I'd fly from Tewksbury directly across Boston Harbor to the tip of Cape Cod, because you don't have to go where the road goes.
And it would take hours to do that.
Right? Yeah, it'd be an easy 6-hour drive.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We'd take off, go straight across the bay, the Boston Bay.
Wow.
You know, and there's the Provincetown, and I'd land. Then we take a taxi into town, freshest seafood in the world before I was vegan.
Wow.
And I have beautiful dinner there. We all pile back in. Usually by then it's night, so we come back flying at night, which is beautiful.
Wow.
So those are some of my favorite flights back there, back in Tewksbury to Provincetown, have dinner, come on back. Many, many times. I love it.
Well, I hope you fly out sometime to see us in our new home in Connecticut sometime. We'd love to have you.
I would love to.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us today. I think that's it, unless there's any other quick questions. But otherwise, check out flyphil.info. That's his website. And I'm sure if you have any other questions, he'd be glad to field them. And if not, he can yell at me later for even offering that. But I know Phil's a great guy. I'm very pleased that he spent this time with us tonight. Thank you so much, Phil. This is an eye-opener for me, and I'm sure other people too, that I've always thought about what would it take to fly, and now we got a little bit of a better idea of what it takes, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. We're going to post this sometime. Phil, we'll let you know where we're posting it so you can show it to your friends and anyone else you want to show it to. And so I want to thank the Jenks Center for making this possible, the Cummings Foundation for the funding for this, and for Hillary for setting this all up and doing just such a great job, and all the people that help her on the back end of this. And thank you all again. Have a great night.
Thank you. Andrew and Hillary and all of you folks that were listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye for now.